What is going on, Life Fitness Coaches? Welcome to another episode of the Change Lives Make Money on the Trainer podcast. It's your boy, Brian Mark. And this week, we're crossing 1,000 podcast episodes. So to celebrate, we're doing 5 podcasts. If you are not subscribed to the podcast yet, you must be fucking crazy. Make sure you guys head over to Spotify or the podcast app so that you guys can subscribe. Because, I'm dropping a lot of value for you guys, and I want to make sure that you consume all of it. All right. So if you like long form content, if you like listening to me, if you like my short form reels, you will definitely love the podcast. So make sure you guys head over to the Change Lives Make Money Online Trainer podcast on Apple or Spotify and subscribe. All right. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about the biggest issue that I've ever made, right? The biggest mistake I've ever made in business. And this mistake cost me millions. And the reason I want to open up and share this mistake with you guys is because I think that a lot of new online coaches make this mistake, and not just online coaches, but a lot of business owners make this mistake when they're first starting their coaching business. And I'm going to talk about what this is in today's podcast. But first, I want to talk about opportunity. Now, when you start becoming an entrepreneur and you start realizing that there is opportunity out there, it starts getting tempting to want to take advantage of these opportunities, right? So when you're growing your online fitness business and then a supplement company reaches out and they're like, you know what, Josh, like you're crushing it and I want to join, I'd love for you to join my team. And then you're like, oh my gosh, like I get this opportunity to be a sponsored athlete. Like how phenomenal. Or, you're crushing it. And then this clothing company reaches out to you and they're like, Melissa, I love your content. I'd love for you to be a clothing ambassador for our business. Like, would you like to be an ambassador? And then you're like, oh my God, like opportunity to be a clothing ambassador sounds fantastic. Sign me the fuck up. And the problem is when we just take advantage of opportunities without actually thinking about what it's going to cost us, we end up losing out on a lot of revenue. Okay. And so I'm going to preface this episode by saying that if I could go back in time, I would undo this decision, but I don't regret it. All right. Now, if I could go back in time, I would undo this decision, but I don't regret it. And the reason I don't regret it is because I've fallen in love with the thing that I'm about to talk about. And I do have a deep passion for it now. But knowing what I know now, based on this, realization, I would go back and I would undo the decision. Because I feel like a lot of people, they like to lie to you. And they're like, oh, everything that we've ever done has led us up to this moment and this time. And I actually don't agree with that. I think that there's some things that I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And this is one of the things that I shouldn't have done. Okay. So the biggest mistake I ever made in my business, and the mistake that cost me millions, was buying a gym. Biggest mistake I ever made in business was buying a gym. Ever. Biggest mistake. And I'm going to talk about why it was the biggest mistake, and I'm going to give some context. And it wasn't a big mistake because, gyms aren't awesome or gyms aren't profitable, which they're not, and gyms are awesome. But it was a big mistake because it cost me millions, because if I would have just focused all of that energy that I put into building the gym on building Pizza Domination, we would be 2 to 3 years ahead of where we're at right now. Because at the end of the day, you guys, you only have 24 hours. There's a very limited amount of time that you get to work on your coaching business, on whatever it is that you're working on. And so in that limited amount of time, you also have a limited amount of energy, because I'd like to say that I'm fucking infinite, which I believe that I am. But I also am confined by my fucking human body, and I can't stay awake for 24 hours and I need to rest. And so even though I'm an infinite creature, I'm living in a fucking human body. Okay. So there's only 24 hours. And because there's only 24 hours, like I only have a certain amount of time that I ever get to work on my shit. And so having 2 businesses literally was a massive mistake, because I don't get to pour all of me into one thing. And because I don't get to pour all of me into one thing, both of the things that I'm working on don't get as much value. And so the biggest mistake I ever made in business was starting a second business while having my current one. And I know that what you guys are all thinking, right? But like, what about all these like serial entrepreneurs and all these people that have like multiple businesses? Like, dude, I understand what you're fucking saying. And I also that's what made me want to do it in the first place. I'm like, well, look at Gary Vee and look at fucking these guys and look at this guy. And these guys have this thing. But it's like, when you get to a certain level, like you can be an investor without being a business owner. And I ain't at that fucking level, right? I thought that's what I was going to do when I invested in the business. Is I was like, I'm just going to invest in the gym. I'm going to be a silent partner. And I ended up taking over the whole fucking operation because nobody knew how to run a business except for me. So I ended up running the whole fucking business. So now I'm running this business and I'm running PT Domination. And it's just like sunk. It's like sunk focus, And okay, so now I want to talk about how this applies to you, okay? Because you guys, I'm going to be honest, you guys do dumb shit all the time, okay? Anytime I get one of my clients that reaches out to me and they're like, yo, B, like, man, this supplement company just reached out to me and they want to sponsor me, bro. And I'm thinking I'm going to take it. Like, what do you think about that? I'm like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Because, okay, so the supplement company that's going to sponsor you, right? Let's say they give you $250 worth of supplements a month, which is actually like pretty rare that supplement companies would do that. And let's say they pay you 10% commission on all the supplements that you sell. So let's just do some fucking math. I want to have a conversation with you guys for a second. So if you sell one online training client, one for 16 weeks, that's $1,000. Okay. Let's just talk about that for a second. So in order for you to make the same amount of money that you would have to make from a supplement company that gave you $250 worth of supplements and 10% of all of the sales that you made, you would have to make $7,500 in sales for the supplement company and also be fucking posting them literally all the fucking time. Think about that for a second. And I know it's cool, the idea of like being a sponsored fucking athlete. Oh my God, I'm sponsored. But you're literally giving up real estate, like space in your fucking bio because you want to be quote unquote sponsored or you want to have a second business. Doesn't make any fucking sense to me at all. So don't do it. And if I can give you some of my mistakes and you guys can learn from my mistakes, then maybe I can prevent one of you guys from taking your eye off the ball. Because as entrepreneurs, like I think the reason that this happens, and I'm guilty of this, don't get me wrong, is we get bored, right? So if you're a creator, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, we get bored, okay? And so oftentimes as an entrepreneur, what we will do to satisfy our boredom is we're like, well, let's take all these fucking new skills I acquired and let's start another business, right? And same thing like when I have online coaches that are like, Brian, I got 40 clients. I'm going to start a supplement company. I'm like, that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. Like you literally, like you just got sponsored. That's literally doesn't make any fucking sense to me, right? That's 0 sense. And so if you think about the amount of like real estate that somebody would have, you have to give up real estate in your bio. You've got to give up real estate in your like on your page. And for all that time and all that energy, and you're going to get literally little to near zero return back. I want you to think about that for a second. It's not fucking worth it, you guys. It's not worth it. And so the biggest mistake I've ever made in my business that literally cost me millions was starting a second business while having my current business. And I think that there's a certain level that you can get to. And again, like I'm still a growing entrepreneur, you guys. Like Peach Nomination is doing incredible, but I'm still like a baby. Like compared to like when I compare myself to like Gary Vaynerchuk, Andy Frisella, like First Form is a multi-billion-dollar company, billion. I'm like, I'm still like, I'm doing well, but I'm still like, I'm not at the First Form level. So like, once I get to the billion level, maybe my perspective will change. But I know that as a startup entrepreneur, having multiple businesses was definitely the wrong move. And I remember listening to an Alex Hormozi podcast, and he talked about the same thing. He talked about how when he had Gym Launch and he launched his supplement brand, and I forget what the supplement brand was called, but he launched a supplement brand and he was Prestige Labs. And he was saying that Prestige Lab was a big mistake in his opinion because it took all of the focus off of Gym Launch, and because he wasn't able to put as much energy into Gym Launch, he essentially made a lot less from that. So just something to consider, you guys, something to consider. I know it's tempting to want to start a second business and, to be a sponsored athlete and to get, affiliated with all these people. But like, unless you've got your shit locked the fuck in, it is simply not worth it. All right. It's not worth it. So hope everyone has the best day of their entire life. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this podcast. We're over 1,000 episodes now, so we're super fucking stoked about that. If you're listening to this on the live, I want you guys to go to the podcast, Apple or Spotify, subscribe, fucking give your boy some love. Also, if you love the podcast, make sure you give me a review on Apple or Spotify. Just scroll to the bottom, 5-star review. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear you guys' feedback. All right. So have the best of your entire life. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys have the best day ever. Peace. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Hopefully you got some value. If you did, and you want to learn more about how me and my team can help you scale your online fitness business to $10,000 a month, DM me 10K on Instagram at TheRealBrianMark for more information, and I'll reach out to you to see if I can help you grow an online coaching business.